Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Thanks for watching and listening. If you're listening, you're on one of the many podcast platforms out there, and I appreciate it. We're on all of them. Just go to your favorite podcast platform and search out The Right Side with Doug Billings and subscribe to our programs over there. Also, if you're watching, you're on YouTube or possibly Facebook. We are at Doug Billings on YouTube and at The Right Side with Doug Billings on Facebook. Please follow us on those platforms as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Constitutional Analysis 101. There is, 2020 has been a train wreck, hasn't it, with regards to everything that's going on. It's COVID, it's the presidential election, shutdowns, riots, anarchy, the new Democratic Socialist Communist Party, etc. But today I want to talk to you with hope and through the lens of analysis with regards to the Constitution in terms of what we're experiencing with this election. Because we need to remind ourselves, dear friends and patriots out there, there's a lot of garbage, a lot of BS on the internet about the process that this is all going through, what's going to happen with the presidential election, anxiety, fear, false hope based on illicit information or wrong information and so forth. So let me begin by being hopeful, and I'll end with being hopeful. I think we have, a lot of achievements out there so far this year. We have, during President Trump's term, we have 3 Supreme Court justices, and I think that he's chosen justices who understand that our Constitution does not need anybody to interpret it, right? Get those words. We don't need to have our Constitution interpreted for us. It's not written in Latin. It's not written in Hebrew. It's not written in Svengali, whatever. It's written in English, ladies and gentlemen. What the Constitution needs, and I think what these justices will do, is apply proper application to the Constitution. It doesn't need to be interpreted, but there's so much BS going on out there with regards in the media. And some, I must say, some conservative pundits, talk show hosts, conservative newscasters, and broadcasters also putting forth wildly intellectually immature BS and things that will not give you a real sense of hope. They may give you a short-term fix, but for your long-term, it's not what you should be paying attention to. I think we need to get a grasp on the Constitution, on how the Constitution will affect this entire process, this election debacle that we're in right now. Many of the posts that I see are from these conservatives, quote unquote, are trying to give hope to the situation. And God bless them for trying to find hope. But giving what they think is hope is really false hope. It's really misinformation. It's wrong. It's illogical. It's not factual. For example, I've seen posts where some people are actually saying this election could end up in the House of Representatives and that Nancy Pelosi could be the president of the United States. That is an abject falsehood, and I'll get to that in a moment. I'll explain to you how and why, but don't cling to that kind of illogical BS. Within the context of this current election debacle, there is no scenario by which Nancy Pelosi can be president. I'll explain. I think that, we speak of hope, and if we want hope, we have to deal first and primarily with facts. And in this case, facts come from the most sacred document of our republic, second only to the Bible. With regards to the election, with regards to possible fraud and recounts and audits, we're all looking for hope. I'm the eternal optimist, ladies and gentlemen. I have more optimism than most people I know. I still think Trump has a pathway to all of this. And we have to begin, though, to identify the crap out there. We're spoon-fed just nonsense from the media. People that don't have any ability to think critically with regards to application of the Constitution. And it comes from both sides of the political aisle, whether you're a liberal commentator or a conservative commentator, etc. Look, you think I'm not hopeful? There's no secret to my allegiance. All you have to do is look over my shoulder and see those beautiful prints up there of President Trump. Comes from the Commander's Artist, by the way, theCommandersArtist.com. You better check him out. One of the premier artists of our time. The personal artist, by the way, of General Mike Flynn. But check his website out. He's made the logos and everything back there. You can tell there's no secret to my allegiance. There's no secret that I have hope for for President Trump to prevail in all of this. But many of you are so filled with fear and anxiety because you listen to and you post things that have little to no truth about them, and they get you all worked up. So let's deal in truth, and we're going to start by dealing with some truth as it pertains to the Constitution. So many of the fears and anxiety are traced back, I think, to a critical dysfunction that we have, a critical lack of knowledge and understanding with regards to the content of the Constitution and how it works. Now, I want you to look up the following things. I want you to take a few notes and look up 3 things for me. First, in the Constitution, I want you to look up Article 2. And within Article 2, look up Section 1, Clauses 2 and 3. All right? Section 2, Clauses 1 and 2 and 3. The 12th Amendment. Look up the 12th Amendment. And then go to the 25th Amendment, okay? Those 3 items, I want you to become familiar with them. They're going to become important. So, if you are one of the millions of people who have anxiety, you feel frustrated with regards to this current state of affairs, and you see the chaos that's surrounding it, chances are pretty good that your frustrations, your anxiety, your nervousness are rooted in this, the insufficient understanding of the Constitution and how it's applied. So today I'll spend some time talking about it. Frustration and anxiety, I think, it's not the fault of the fake news. It's not the fault of your senator. It's not the fault of your House of Representatives rep. It's not the fault of your senator, your governor, your local school board official, or your board of county commissioners. It's not the fault of President Trump that you're filled with anxiety. You have to own your anxiety, ladies and gentlemen. You have to own your frustrations. You're not owning it. You're blaming it on other people, and therefore your frustration will never end. You don't put your frustration in control, other people in control of your frustrations, because then you have no control over your frustrations. So own them, and own it because you realize that, what Doug is saying is right. I don't know how the Constitution is applied in this situation. I'm just listening to all this information that I'm getting from here and there and yon, and I'm panicked because I don't know what the truth is. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not belittling you because for any of this, not at all. So the parts of the Constitution, again, that we need to be familiar with: Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 2 and 3. Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 2 and 3. Make sure you get that written down. The 12th Amendment and the 25th Amendment. Very crucial. Remember, now, this is important. We just had an election on November 3rd, and almost all of you think that on November 3rd, our president was determined. Now, there's mix-ups about the counting and the audits. All of that aside, most of the country thinks that we determined who our president is going to be on November 3rd. Guess what? That ain't true, folks. We didn't, and we never have. We have never determined a president in our republic on November 3rd or on what we consider Election Day. Never. Not one of our presidents was determined on November 3rd. Yet almost 100% of you are up in arms. You're panic-stricken and you're aghast. Oh my God, the fraud, the potential of it. It's caused panic, and you want so desperately for Trump to win. But you've taken your eye off the ball. You've taken your eye off the ball. And in this case, the ball is the Constitution. No president is elected in November. We have this institution that we call the Electoral College, this brilliant system whereby the founders created a fair way for equal representation of votes. The Electoral College determines who the president will be, not a vote held in November. And the Electoral College votes, ladies and gentlemen, they vote for a president in December. And then those votes, sealed up, are delivered to the Senate on January 6th. Okay? Electoral College votes in December. The votes are delivered to the Senate on January 6th. Why? Why, Doug? How do you know? Why January 6th? Because it's in the Constitution. It's set in stone in law, by law. That's when the Electoral College votes are tallied up. It's in the Constitution. So the entire country, or at least most of it, is in this paralyzed panic over the presidential election that they think happened back in November. But what they fail to realize is that there has been no vote yet taken. None. Zero. No vote taken that determines the presidency yet. This is where we can all take a lesson from President Trump. And I want you to look and notice how calm, how cool, how collected he's been. Clearly, he has stated his opinions on Twitter, and we know them. We know his opinions about fraud. We know his opinions about what he feels about mail-in voting that's not verified with IDs and signatures and so forth. We know all of that. But in the grander scheme of things, look at him. Watch him. Calm, cool, collected. Went golfing a couple weeks ago, drove through the crowd at the MAGA March in Washington, D.C. this past weekend. He's calm and he's cool. His famous phrase, "Let's see what happens." We need to all remember that with regards to application of all of this, and let's just see what happens. So let it play out. Let's see what happens. I think those words are profound in a way. They always have been whenever he says them. Let's see what happens. You know, he's always guided us down that path of just remaining calm. Let's see what happens. So let's relax. Let's let the constitutional process play out. The fake news, some politicians out there, they're in such a hurry, aren't they? Such a hurry to declare Biden as president-elect. The president-elect needs this. He needs more access. He needs daily security briefings. The president-elect. Such a rush to name Joe Biden the president-elect. Here's another little tidbit of information. Some of you may know this, but I bet a lot of you don't. There is no such office called president-elect. It's completely non-constitutional, does not exist. President-elect has no power, has no credibility, can't make any decisions, has no authority granted to it whatsoever. President-elect is a vacant concept with no ability to influence anything, but yet some on the left and in the media, and even some on the right, are in such a hurry to declare Biden as president-elect. Why? Why is that? What could possibly be their reason for wanting to rush to name Biden this empty, vacant, have no meaning title as president-elect? You want to know why, I think? Because they know he's not. They know he is not the president-elect. They know he did not win. So they're in a hurry to say it out loud just to condition us. Now, we'll see what happens. I have no way of proving that point. And we did another show last week on gut feelings, and evidence of the obvious is sufficient, meaning that we all have this gut feeling. We all saw evidence of the obvious, massive numbers, massive enthusiasm, unlike any president in this republic's history, spontaneous parades and boat rallies everywhere. And yet Biden wins. Right. So the 20th Amendment, back to our constitutional discussion. The 20th Amendment, the terms of the president and the vice president shall end at noon on the 20th of January. That's in the Constitution, okay? There's no need for any president to concede before January 20th. Everybody's on Trump's case. Well, he hasn't conceded. That is so intellectually immature of President Trump. What an ego the guy has. Can you believe that he hasn't conceded the election yet? Well, there's absolutely no constitutional requirement for him to concede until January 20th. At noon on January 20th, if he and Vice President Pence aren't reelected and confirmed by the votes of the Electoral College, they're out. Their terms will come to an end. In our entire history, you guys, in our entire history of our republic, no president has ever refused to concede. A concession doesn't have to come until January 6th or the 20th when the president when his term ends. All of you are up in arms. Oh, but Trump is. Trump's never going to concede. How do you know? That's just rubbish. It's left-wing propaganda conjecture just because they don't like the guy. Constitutionally, there's no requirement for it. It's like, why didn't he show us his taxes? Well, there's no constitutional requirement for any president to show you his tax returns. It doesn't exist within the Constitution. But yet you hold that over him and you use these things as if they are somehow demerits. January 6th is when the Electoral College vote is counted, okay? January 6th. In December, the electors of the states cast their votes. The states then certify those votes. Now, two things can happen. Number one, the states give the certified votes to the president of the Senate. These are two things that do happen, not could happen. The states will give these certified votes to the Senate, and they'll also give a copy of the certified votes to the National Archives of the Library of Congress. The Senate keeps those vote certifications under wraps and sealed until January 6th. That's when, according to the Constitution, the seals of the certified votes are opened in front of the Senate and the House. The Senate president will read the votes aloud, and a simple majority of the Electoral College votes is all somebody needs to become president. All right, so those votes are read aloud, and it's determined. Then on January 20th, one of three things will happen. Our current president will either be sworn in, number one. Number two, he'll leave office. Or number three, this is in the Constitution, he'll be subject to arrest for trespassing. Okay, so those are the three things. This is all in the Constitution. I'm not saying anything that's not in there, but we have to remember to apply this in the current scheme of things. So, a reminder, no president has ever refused to concede. The Constitution provides no requirement for a concession, and we all need to take a breath. Now, if for some reason the Electoral College votes are not counted on time, there is a time constraint. They need to be counted on January 6th. Okay, that's not negotiable. You can't delay that. If a state and their electors were late and they didn't get the votes to the Senate on time, the Congress, the answer is this: they're not counted. Those votes would not be counted. The 20th Amendment states that the date when the vote takes place is January 6th. This is when the president is elected, ladies and gentlemen. Conservatives are out there saying, the courts, and God bless the conservatives who are trying to give us hope, the courts are going to overturn this election because of the fraud and the mail-in ballot scandals, and they didn't let us observe the counting of the votes. The courts are going to come to our rescue. I need to be clear with you about this. There's a process by which the Congress has input as to who the president will be. Okay? The courts are not going to overturn the election. Get used to that thought. The Supreme Court is not going to say Trump is the winner of the election. Not going to happen. Because it can't happen. They don't have the power to do that. What may happen is they may determine if fraud exists, that the states didn't handle the election properly, and they'll turn it back to the states to fix the problem. Then we'll have to determine the counts and so forth and who got what. They're also worried out there, some conservatives, that if it goes to Congress, Nancy Pelosi might be the president. Oh, my God, we can't have that. I can't imagine that happening. not going to happen in this situation. It's constitutionally impossible. The only way that, again, the Congress would have input on who the president is if there's a tie in the Electoral College vote. Or if the president, I should also say, if the president fails to qualify, that's in the Constitution, fails to qualify, that's in the 12th Amendment. Okay, what does fail to qualify mean? It could mean that there's somebody on the ballot who we discover is not a naturally born United States citizen, because that's one of the requirements, or not old enough, any number of reasons, mentally incapacitated, something. So fails to qualify can mean some of those things with regards to people who may or may not be on the ballot. So in that case of a tie, the House would then choose the president, and temporarily, the vice president would be president. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the process is continuing right now as it's put forth in the Constitution. We have to have patience with that process. There's not a need for us to guess or to speculate about any of it. The Constitution's clear. It doesn't need to be interpreted. It needs to be applied. So here's what's going to happen. Laws and the Constitution are running this process. And the courts, again, they're not going to overturn an entire election. Reasons, number one, because the elections aren't federal issues. They're state issues. Number two, the lawsuits filed by the Trump team, where are they being filed? At the state level. The Supreme Court can only hear cases that come before it, and if they don't have the authority to overturn elections, they can simply say, look, you might not have followed the law here, so go back and fix it. So they would return the issue to the states for them to go fix it. It would, if they overthrew an election, think about it, ladies and gentlemen. If the Supreme Court overturned an election, that means they would be throwing out valid votes just as much as they would be throwing out invalid votes. They're not in the business. They're not constitutionally empowered to overturn elections. They can determine if laws were followed or if laws were broken. That's where our focus should be. So the Supreme Court will rule, likely, on whether or not lower courts followed the law. They could also rule that I think that the election processes in the states is fraudulent. And if they do that, they would send the case again back to the states and order them to fix the problem. You see, they're not going to overturn it, you guys. They're not. Don't depend on the Supreme Court to overturn an election. Depend on them to rule that laws were violated. And that's our pathway, and those are our avenues, and we'll pursue those when the time comes. As Trump says, let's see what happens. Let's follow the process. If states then are told to fix the problem, we'll begin to tackle that issue as it comes. We'll follow the law. There's a lot of chatter out there in social media claiming hope that the Supreme Court is going to overturn this election, and I just want you to be clear that that's not going to happen in those terms and in those words. It's not going to happen like what it's meant to lead you to believe. It's not possible. It's going to set you up for a crushing loss. You talk about anxiety and fear now. You'll really have it if you've got all of your hopes pinned on the Supreme Court overturning this election. Now, look, I'm not trying to crush your hope. I'm trying to give you hope. I'm trying to give you hope that's based in truth and reality. And as I read the Constitution, this is what I'm seeing. Hope is not going to be born from believing that Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch are going to overturn the election or any other justices. Got to follow the content of the Constitution. The Constitution does not permit a delay in the electors sending their votes to be counted on January 6th. If they don't get the votes in on time, they're simply not counted. And there's no requirement that 100% of the Electoral College votes have to be counted. If the Senate determines that some of those votes are invalid or fraudulent or had problems with them, they don't have to count them. That's happened before in our republic. Look it up 4 times, I believe, in our history when some of the Electoral College votes were not counted because of various reasons, fraud among them. And to be clear, and I want to be very clear on this, there is no constitutional scenario, none, in any of this that we're talking about now, no constitutional scenario whereby Nancy Pelosi becomes president of the United States. Look, the constitutional provision that enables the Speaker of the House to become president is only if the president and the vice president die, or if they both become incapacitated, or if they're both found to be not fit. Those are the only ways that Pelosi becomes president. And all of this that we're talking about with fraud, ballot malfeasance, and manipulation, there's no pathway for Pelosi to become president in any of this. So just relax about all that. There's so much chatter on social media about the fear of Pelosi becoming president and all of this. Forget it. No constitutional pathway for the Speaker of the House to become president in any of this. Again, the only way she becomes president is if Trump and Pence die or become incapacitated. It's the only way, folks. So chill about that. Remember, elections are state issues. They're not federal ones. It's not up to President Trump. It's not up to Congress. It's not up to the Senate. It's up to our state legislatures to fix all of this craziness. And if you want to be active and if you want to find hope, work for hope in as much as you work for voter registration and ID requirements. Work for laws at the state legislature level whereby we must present legal ID and verifiable signatures in order to vote in person. We can make accommodations for those people who are genuinely and legitimately handicapped, as by law the ADA says we must, and we will, gladly so. But just printing and mailing out ballots to anybody or any location and not verifying voter rolls against who the ballots are being sent is sheer madness. And it doesn't help Republicans, and it does not help members of the New Democratic Socialist Communist Party in the long run. Because we'll find out. That's how they have won elections for many, many years in Pennsylvania and California. Not going to spend a lot of time at all about this, but California went red this year too, I believe. It's now in the whole mix with regards to the lawsuits that Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and others are filing. So California is now in the mix. But spend your time and your energy working for proper balloting, proper voting, legal signatures, legal IDs. One person, one vote. One living person, one vote. Mail-in ballots must end. Get involved with your local school districts also, ladies and gentlemen. That's my suggestion. From grade school all the way up through your college, because this stuff, the Constitution, isn't taught as it should be. You're taught that the Constitution should be an evolving document and that it changes over time. No, that is not the intent of the founders. It's not the intent of the Constitution as it's written. Get involved. Work for change this way. You'll find hope there. You won't find hope chasing social media posts that don't have any ability to critically think about how the Constitution should be applied. Now look, we all know that 270 electoral votes are needed in order for President Trump to become the president. He's only 38 votes away from that. There's reason to be hopeful. There's reason to just wait and see, as President Trump says, let's see what happens. Okay? There's a constitutional process that is taking place. I've just outlined it for you. Get out your constitutions, look up those articles and the amendments that I told you about at the beginning of the show and become familiar with them. And teach your children to become familiar with them. And then begin to demand your local school boards, your local county commissioners, and your local elected officials begin to hold each other and yourselves and the states in which you live accountable to not only the United States Constitution, but more importantly, your state constitutions. Because your state constitutions are the law of your land. What you should really be doing is making sure that you're taking a look at your state constitution, because in 2020, more of our states were responsible for robbing us of our liberties and our constitutional rights than the federal government was. The state constitution is where you should begin and really endeavor to understand what your state constitution sets forth. Because not only with regards to voter and election fraud, but with shutdowns, with all of this COVID nonsense and the shutdowns and the mask mandates and everything else, make sure you review your state constitutions. But ladies and gentlemen, you have a pack of blessing on your back. We all do. This country, our republic, is a blessing. And it also has a pack of blessings within it. Let's all make sure that we promise each other that we'll take inventory of those blessings all the time and every day. Let's continue also to pray for President Trump and his family, for our republic, and let's pray for one another. The right side is the side of God and prayer, and we will peacefully endeavor to see all of this through. And with the help of the Constitution and proper application of it, we will succeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will meet again. Make sure that you subscribe to our program on all of your favorite podcast platforms. And we're looking for sponsors. If you know somebody who wants to sponsor the program to help continue this message, please have them contact us. God bless you, everybody. We'll meet again right here on the right side with Doug Billings. Cheers.